If I were buying a home in 2026, I would not be trying to outsmart the market. Instead, I'd be trying to avoid dumb mistakes that often cost homebuyers tens of thousands of dollars. So, in this video, I'm going to dive into the things that I would ignore, what I would obsess over, what I would delay, and what I'd want to lock in as soon as possible if I were buying a home this year. Now, if you're new here, my name is Nick. I am a licensed realtor. I am also the proprietor, purveyor of this DIY Homebuyer Academy, where I teach you how to buy a home without using someone like me. And I do this because, one, I just think that an educated consumer is the best kind of consumer. And two, with a lot of the online tools and platforms, I just believe that there's never been a better time to try and learn how to buy a home on your own. And you can realize significant savings if that's something that you want to do. But enough about me. Point is, if you like what you're hearing here, please do subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it with somebody else who is thinking about buying a home. At the very least, you'll help educate them, and at best, you could save them a ton of money. Now, let's go ahead and dive in with this first section of what I would ignore if I was buying a home this year. And the first thing that I'm going to give you is I would ignore every headline about interest rates. Why? Well, it's not because interest rates are unimportant. It's just that interest rates are fluctuating weekly, if not daily, and sometimes by swings as much as 0.25%. But here's the thing. Most of us are not making decisions on housing simply based on interest rates. In fact, interest rates are not the most important part of buying a house. Finding the right home, the place that you want to be in for several years. That is the most important piece. And even in this last couple of weeks, we saw interest rates drop by 0.25%, which was very exciting for realtors everywhere. I'm sure if you were on social media, you saw crazy numbers of posts about how interest rates are at 5.99. Oh my gosh, buy a home today. Well, for most people, that 0.25% drop is about $80 a month in terms of their mortgage payment. I'm not saying $80 a month is nothing, especially when you calculate that over the course of 30 years. That is objectively a lot of money. But I am saying that if you're waiting for an $80 a month savings in order to buy the right home, well, it might not be the best time for you to buy, regardless of what's happening with rates. And I just don't think that rates are going to come down to below 5%. I don't think we're going to see 4, much less 3% rates again anytime soon. So if that's what you're waiting for, well, you might want to come back to this channel in a few years, but you're going to waste a lot of time and energy if you're purely letting your emotions and how you feel about buying a house be dictated by these little swings in interest rates. So that would be the number one thing that I would ignore. Number two is related, but I would ignore any headline about housing crash or, even though there's not as many of them, predictions about housing booms. These predictions are purely content that is being created for clicks. All of the economic experts disagree about what is going to happen in the housing market this year. Frankly, none of us have a crystal ball about what the future is going to bring. These are turbulent times. So anybody who's trying to tell you that the housing market is going to crash, well, it's just because they're trying to get views on their article. They have no freaking idea. And here's the thing. The gloom and doomers about the housing market have been saying ever since 2017 that the housing market was going to crash. And they've been wrong for almost a decade now. I'm not saying that they won't ever be right. Even a broken clock is right 2 times a day. So if they keep saying it long enough, eventually there probably will be some sort of a crash. But whether that's this year or 5 years from now or another 20 years from now, nobody knows. And so again, just like with the rates, don't be making your housing decisions based upon these completely bombastic predictions of what the future may or may not bring. And I've seen it time and time again. And unfortunately, it's even been true in my own life that those who wait for the perfect opportunity, well, they usually let a lot of really good opportunities pass them right by. And that perfect opportunity never actually appears. In fact, most people who bought at the perfect time didn't know it at the time. It was only in hindsight that they could see, wow, that was a really good time to buy a home. I've got a personal story here, even it was on the sell side, but in about September of 2020, I had a house to sell and I got really concerned about the elections and with COVID, some of the things that were going on. I thought that there was going to be a housing crash. And so I sold my home in September of 2020. Had I have held on to my home for even just another 6 months, I would have probably seen $75 to $80,000 of increase in equity. I got scared and I sold too quick. And on the buy side, you have the opposite problem that you get scared that there's going to be a better deal tomorrow, that the housing market is going to fall apart tomorrow. And so instead of capitalizing on what could be a really good deal today, you actually just watch home prices continue to go up month over month and year over year. So I just caution you against buying into the hype about housing market crashes. Ignore that junk. Instead of chasing the noise, I would put my energy into the things that really pay off, which leads us into the things that I would obsess over if I was buying a home this year. The first thing that I think home buyers should obsess over is monthly payment resilience. Too many of us ask the question, can I afford this home today? But we don't ask the question, can I afford this home 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now? And that's because we have this bias. It's part of our human nature to expect that the future is going to be different and brighter than it often is. And it's kind of a beautiful trait of humanity, but we all sort of expect that our lives are just going to linearly move up and to the right. And I think on the whole, that is how most of our lives go, but it's not linear. There are a lot of ups and downs and unpredictability in that line. And so I think that buyers really need to ask the question of how resilient am I monthly? And there's a few other sub questions to that I think will help you answer what is your monthly affordability resilience. The big ones have been what happens if my property taxes or my insurance increase significantly? What happens if both of those things go up? Because this has been a real issue, even for people who have been in their home for a very long time. We talk about home ownership as being this wonderful thing because your mortgage is fixed and predictable and you don't have to worry about annual rent increases. That's not exactly true. Yes, your principal and interest, if it's a fixed rate mortgage, does not change, but every year there can be reassessments of tax values. And especially if you're in an area that is growing or has seen massive price appreciation in the last few years, well, you can have your taxes go up significantly. That can raise your mortgage if you pay those things through escrow by a few $100s a month. And the same is true of insurance as well, especially if you live in areas that often have natural disasters, hurricanes, fires, tornadoes. Well, a lot of insurers have lost their shirts in recent years. And so they are jacking up rates, and homeowners that pay those things through their mortgage and escrow, they're also seeing significant jumps. So if you are thinking about buying a house and you're like, okay, I can afford it today, but if in a year your mortgage went up by a few $100s because of taxes or insurance, how would that feel? Don't overestimate how much of a pay bump or your expenses might come down. Always just assume, okay, if my income stays the same, but my house payment were to go up by a few $100s, how tight would that make things? The other piece to consider, without sounding too much like Dave Ramsey here, but it's just what happens if you lose your job and you're out of work for 3 to 6 months? can you still make the house payment work? And of course, having an emergency fund, like I do think that there's a lot of wisdom in things like that. But just really asking those questions of, okay, what kind of resilience do I have from a monthly standpoint if I end up purchasing this home? That I would absolutely obsess over. The next piece that I would obsess over are home inspections. There's really two pieces to this because a home inspection could save you hundreds of thousands of dollars by telling you that you need to walk away from a bad home. But it also is going to be the thing that gives you a lot of leverage to negotiate the best possible deal on your home. So, the things that I really want to look for in inspections, the things that I would absolutely obsess over, are all of the unsexy things. We're not talking cosmetics where we need updates to the kitchen or a new bathroom. Yes, that stuff is fun to think about and it can add value to your home. But the things where people really get burnt is what's happening behind the walls, all the unseen stuff, the condition of the roof and the history of if there's been any water damage or leaks, what's going on underneath the house. Is there drainage issues and water that's getting down into the basement or crawl space or foundation? Things like windows and siding, which can cost an ungodly amount to replace. Yeah, you've seen a window on the shelf at Home Depot for $500, but if you actually want to get a good window fully installed, you could be looking at $2,500, $3,000 or more easily for each window. And so, really having an inspector that's going to look at what's going on with the electrical, what kind of wires are in there, how old is the panel, how much room is in the panel in case you need to add an electric car or you need to get a heat pump. Speaking of heat pumps, what kind of condition is the HVAC system, all the heating and cooling? How's that looking? What kind of plumbing is in the house? Does that need to be replaced? What are issues with it? All of these are things that you really want to obsess over and drill into because, gosh, if you have to replumb an entire house, I mean, depending on the size of the home, that could be a $70,000 job, maybe more. And so these are the kinds of things that it's like, well, knowing that from the outset, you may just want to walk away from a home that seemed perfect, but once you started looking at what's going on behind the walls, yikes, not a good situation. And then on all the cosmetic stuff, that's where you have some leverage to negotiate with the sellers because this is where we can get tactical, looking at other comps, things that have sold, updates that have been done to those homes, getting an idea of what the costs are going to be for you to make the home your own, if that fits with the average value of the neighborhood. All of that's just really good to think through on the front end and be able to come back to the sellers with, hey, actually, we need these kind of credits or we need to renegotiate a bit on the purchase price now that we have a more detailed idea of what our costs are actually going to be in this place. Unless, of course, the sellers are being reasonable and they've priced in all of those defects or things that need to be addressed in the near future. But I would absolutely obsess over inspections. That is not something that you want to skimp on, especially in these economic conditions where home prices are still pretty high and interest rates are also as high as they've been. And then the third piece that I would obsess over is location. And I'm actually talking like micro location. Like I'd want to get really granular on what is going on in this exact piece of land and the area immediately around the property that I am looking to buy. I see this happen a lot with, had somebody, a friend of mine that had purchased land on what was a golf course. This was about 4 years ago. And a year after buying their house, the golf course sold to a developer. And now there's high-rise apartments that are going in there. Very, very different from what my friend was expecting. Now they're wanting to sell their house, but it's not worth nearly what it was when it was beautiful green space. And now the buyers are spooked by all the development going on around there. This could have been avoided or at least foreseen had my friend have done more due diligence when buying the property, looking at, okay, the golf course, is that something that could be sold? And I get it that, yeah, okay, the golf course has been there for 40 something years. It seems unlikely, but you just always have to imagine green space. Green space can be developed. What could be put in there? And it's worth even just looking into, all right, what are the kind of financials? Is there anything online about this golf course being for sale? Are there any news articles asking around? It's amazing what you can find out just by looking at Reddit and different forums, finding out what's happening in local communities. So I would really drill down on the specifics of the lot, the neighborhood, and just make sure that my expectations of the location are indeed accurate. And I'd want to certainly look into things like common sense stuff, but really spend a lot of time with what's happening in the schools, what's happening with public services like police and fire, and how long are response times if we need firefighters to get out here. What's just the general trend economically of the area that I'm looking to buy this home in? Do things seem like they're trending in the right direction, wrong direction? All of those kinds of things. I just want to spend a lot of time around there, make sure that I really feel good, safe, like, yep, this is a place that I actually want to live. Because there's just nothing worse, right, than buying a home that you thought you loved. And then after 6 months to a year of being there, you're like, I can't stand this area. Or your value takes a huge hit because of some developmental plans that you just didn't take the time to look into. In short, you can refinance a rate, but you can't refinance a bad street. So I say it, location, location, location. It's absolutely true. I would obsess over it. Now, here's the part a lot of people get wrong. These are the things that I would delay. Now, delay has kind of this negative connotation. I don't mean doing nothing. I just mean being patient and really letting both the house and your lifestyle dictate what's most important. Sometimes what's most important takes a little while to reveal itself to you. So the first thing that I would delay is any major renovations. By major renovations, I'm not talking about painting the wall, putting up new blinds, changing out some appliances. I'm talking about anything that you have to pull permits for. A lot of times people want to buy a house and they've got this grand vision for how they're going to take the 2 small bedrooms and turn it into one big yoga studio, or they're going to totally remodel the kitchen and the layout of it. That's all fine and well, but there are many times where homeowners rush into these decisions without actually living in the home first, getting a deep understanding of the flow and how they're actually using the space. And so they make these decisions too quick, they redo their kitchen, and then a couple years later, they're like, man, had I have thought about it more, I wouldn't have done it this way. But they've already sunk 50, 60 grand into a new kitchen. They're not going to up and change it all again now. Well, all of that could just be avoided if we were to just slow our roll on major renovations. I know you're excited to make the house your own, but I just strongly encourage you to hold off a little bit. Live in the house, see how it feels, see how it lives, see just traffic patterns, what door you're using to come in, where you want to drop groceries off, how you're actually using the rooms. You have no, sometimes it's like, surprise, we're having another kid. What was that great idea of turning 2 bedrooms into one big room? I can't do that anymore. We need the one room. Anyway, just saying there's some real benefit to being patient and delaying on the big renovations. One more thing on the renovations. This isn't just inside of the house. This goes with landscaping as well. You really want to see how the property goes through the full 4 seasons, especially when it comes to drainage. I can't tell you how many times people have hit landscaping as the very first thing, and then they create major water issues for themselves because they just didn't understand where water pooled. Had they have spent a year in the home seeing those things, they would have been able to mitigate them and save themselves a lot of money, not having to redo their landscaping plans later. The next thing that I would delay is using all my cash immediately. That certainly goes for the major renovations, but it also can just go for furnishing and other big purchases. It's kind of amazing to me how often people will right after buying a house, go out and buy a new car or spend a ton of money at Pottery Barn or Restoration Hardware on new furniture sets. I get that furniture is a necessity. You got to have it in your house, but home ownership can be filled with surprises. And while I'm not here to tell you how to spend your money or how much is too much, I am here to just say uh, you might want to keep some of your ammo dry in case you've got to replace your furnace and your air conditioner and you're slapped with a $15,000 bill out of nowhere. Unfortunately, that's just the kind of stuff that happens when you own a home and there's no landlord or anybody else to call to come and take care of it for you. So that's the other big thing that I would delay is any other major purchases or nice to haves related to the home. Live in it, figure out what your real priorities are in terms of any changes to make to the home, and financially plan accordingly for those. And the third thing that I would delay if I was buying a home this year is any sort of emotional urgency. Like, rushed decisions tend to be really, really expensive. I get that life circumstances sometimes dictate, like, we got to find something now, we got to move quick. I'm not saying that there isn't a time and a place to move speedily. There absolutely is, but there's a difference between moving like an F1 driver and moving like somebody who's trying to get away in a car chase, right? Like, both are going very fast, but one is in control and confident, and the other is just a lunatic that's going to hurt somebody, if not themselves. You don't want to be the latter, right? And so people who are rushed tend to not be as thoughtful about the decisions that they're making with their housing. So I guess I'm not really saying I would delay anything as much as I'm just saying here, it's okay to take a breath and slow down in your home buying process. So, with what I delay and slow down in mind, let's hit on this last category. These are the things that I would lock in as soon as possible. And the first one is lock in the non negotiables. For me, I've got three. You might have more, but my three are going to be area, price ceiling, and what are the kind of inspection issues that if there's an issue like this, it's a no go for me. Area is all of these are big, but with area, I see it happen a lot where people they have too wide of a search area because they just want to find the right home, and they'll fall in love with a really beautiful home, but it's in an area that just makes no sense for them. The commutes are really far. It's not around the kind of amenities that they want to be in. It's not a place that they feel safe. It's not in a place that's going to appreciate whatever like that. The area is misaligned with their goals. So they've got this beautiful house, but it's not the right home, if you know what I mean. Beautiful house can still be the wrong home. Another way of thinking about this is we've probably all been in relationships, those infatuation ships, where it's like, that person is just perfect for me. And then after a while, you'll find out, like, no, like, there's a lot that's really attractive about this person, but at the end of the day, like, not the right fit. Well, the same thing happens in housing. We feel like we fall in love with a house, but it's actually just infatuation. And I'll tell you, if you're actually in love with a home, the way you're going to determine if it's real love is by these non-negotiables. It's going to be in the right location. It's going to be under your price ceiling, and it's not going to offend your non-negotiables in the inspection, repairs, and things that are needed. So I hit on it's got to be in the right location. The second one is that price ceiling. We talked about the monthly resilience, but I see people all the time. They just try and stretch their budget beyond what they know is comfortable or reasonable for them, and they. I tell you what, like, no matter how great the home in the area is, if in 12 to 18 months, like, you're kind of staring down the barrel at foreclosure, or you're feeling like, gosh, I can never travel. I can never do the kind of fun things that I want to do. I can't go out for food or drinks because I'm just strapped to this incredibly high monthly mortgage. Well, you start to hate the home pretty quick because you feel like a slave to it. Like being house poor is a very real thing, and it's not a fun place to be. So don't compromise on that price ceiling. And then the third one is just the inspection issues. Like if for me, it's like, and if there's anything structural, anything that threatens the structural integrity of the house, or there's things that are lopsided, if there's any water issues, recurring water issues, and we don't know what the source of it is, if the whole house needs to be rewired because there's dangerous electrical, or if it needs new plumbing, those are the kinds of things that for me, I'm probably out on the house. There's just too many unknowns, unless the seller has already priced those in and I'm getting it, you know, $150,000, $200,000 below market, and I feel like, okay, then I can afford to make these changes and get it back to what the appraised value is. Anyhow, that's rare, is what I'm trying to say. And so I'd walk away from anything that's going to need major system replacements. So those are my non-negotiables. And if a house doesn't satisfy that criteria, I'm out. I'm out on it. And I encourage you to have a similar set of criteria. Lock in those non-negotiables. The next piece that I'm going to lock in is my team. And for that, there's really three pieces to it. One is a lender. I want a lender who is more like my financial partner and planner than somebody who is just trying to sell me on a home loan. And you get that by working with somebody that you're able to develop some sort of a relationship with. And you can feel when somebody is wanting to educate and guide versus when somebody is just trying to sell you on a loan product. You should never feel rushed by your lender to purchase a home. You should feel like they are always available to you to answer any questions that you have about how loans work, about what the numbers mean, interest rates, fees. All of that should be an open conversation. So find a good lender. The next piece is finding a good home inspector. And I really like home inspectors, of course, that have all of the certifications to be a home inspector, but also that have some background either in the trades or as a contractor, that were builders themselves at some point. Just find that those people have a very practical, applied knowledge. They're able to see things that people that just haven't worked in the trades don't necessarily know to look for. They have a deep, deep understanding. And again, they're really able to educate you in the home buying process, which is what I find so rewarding about being a DIY home buyer. And of course, as a DIY home buyer, the third person that should be on your team is me, or at least somebody like me, whether that's a real estate attorney or another real estate consultant. Yeah, you don't need to have a buyer's agent, but it is really nice to have somebody in your corner who has gone through a lot of transactions, and they kind of know what's normal, what's not normal, what to look out for, so that you don't make some really costly mistake or miss a deadline in your contingencies and lose your ability to negotiate, or worse, lose out on your earnest money. So having somebody who's just in your corner, walking through things with you, that's really good. And that is something that I offer. If you want to talk more about it, you can find all of my contact details in the description below. Would love to connect. And the final thing that I would lock in is just mindset. And this kind of goes back to what I said previously about not being rushed, but it's really just approaching the home buying process with confidence and calmness. I just think you get so much further when you're having a clear head about, hey, I really want to buy a home, but I'm not going to force it. Renting is a great option for a lot of people. Now, I do believe in the power of home ownership. Historically, it has been the number one wealth generator for Americans for decades and decades and decades. The studies are crazy when they show the wealth gap between people who own their homes versus people who have rented their whole life. It's also just an amazingly satisfying feeling to say that, yeah, I have the title to the dirt beneath my feet, and I can do whatever I want to my property to make it my own, and I don't need the approval of a landlord or somebody else. It's a wonderfully rewarding thing. but it's also not something to be entered into lightly or without full consideration, because homeownership can also be really, really expensive. And so, for most people, if you're not planning to be in the home for at least 5 years, it's probably not going to make sense to buy. Because you're thinking about being in a place for 5 years or more, well, you really need to carefully consider the decision, which is again why we go back to the non negotiables, just really taking the time to think through what is the kind of home that's going to be the very best for you, sticking to that, not getting rushed, moving with confidence and calmness. That mindset is something that I would just get locked in right away. So there you have it. If I was buying a house this year, that's what I would ignore, what I would obsess over, what I would delay, and what I would lock in ASAP. Now, I want to hear from you. What are the things that I missed that you would recommend doing, or what is it that resonates with you? One more reminder, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to the channel, like, share, all those things that help YouTube share this with anybody else who might benefit from the content. And if you want to get in touch, look at the notes in the description. You'll find how to reach me there. All right. Thanks for coming along. We'll see you in the next one.